Okay, so to set up your session, you can either start with a new one, or you can continue using the session that you use to record them with. If you start with a new one, we're going to have to import files to your DAW project. Note that your DAW project folder, let me pull this up in my Finder here, is one that has multiple folders in it. So let's say I'm creating the sound exploration folder. It has an audio files folder within it. And once I make bounces, which we'll talk about in a minute, that will also create a folder for that. So to add files to your session, you can do two things. You can open your file browser here by pressing the letter F, or you can press this button. That opens up your file browser. And you can add files by going through the audio file options here. Add audio file, and then you navigate to your folder that you know you have your sounds in, and you select them from the list here. And then you click add, and then you're done. And it adds it to your file list here. Another way is to drag and drop those into that file browser in this way, where you just click them and drag them in. Once you have them in your file browser, you can easily put them into your session. You can drag them in manually, line them up with the timeline, and it should be all good. So you can drag them in here and identify sounds by their transients, waveforms, and so on and so forth. Your tracks then have regions, which show you the sounds that are there. To separate a certain sound in the region, you hit Command and T, or you can go to Edit and Split, and that will split the sound off of this region. And what it does is doesn't make a new file; it just points to a different part of your original file. Notice that all I've done is create new subsections over here in my file browser. It's important to note that we don't have separate files, we just have separate regions of a file, so that when we copy and paste it around, it's not creating new files all over the place. However, once we start processing, we will want to create subsequent files in our project. So let's go down here to the editor down here. If I double click on this region, I can isolate this sound. I can do things to this sound to adjust its pitch, its time stretch. We can reverse this region, but we can only do that if we have its own audio file. So if we go over here to our editor, I hit the E key to expand the audio editor. The audio editor allows us to edit parameters of our track or our file. Okay. In the file menu here, I have this other menu called functions, where I can see all these other things I can do to this file. Notice that if I select this reverse function, I can adjust it accordingly, right? I can create a reverse. Further, if I want to stretch this audio, I can then stretch it manually with in the track menu. If I select this option, let me give myself some room here. I can select this flex tool. And what it does is it looks for ways in which to adjust this for us. Now, slicing, what it does is it allows you to find transients in the waveform and align it with a tempo. But what we're going to do is select speed. And speed allows us to adjust Now that we have the flex tool selected, I can hover over the right portion of our region and click and stretch out our sound. And it stretches out the time factors and slows it down. That effect is something that is applied to this region, okay? And once I start adding effects, especially like things like delay, or I'm just going to add a simple effect here. Once I start adding effects, I'll probably want to create a new generation of a file for it, okay? And to do that, I need to bounce this region into a new file so that it has its own new heading here, okay? So to bounce this file, I can control-click on the region, press control and click, or it's the equivalent to right-clicking, and you use the bounce in place function. There's also a function for exporting as audio file, which you can also do, but what that means is it's now bounced into a bounced folder of your session, and you would have to import it manually. Bounce in place allows you to add it to a new track, which is kind of useful automatically, and it basically just kind of evaluates your plugins and your automation effects and other things that you've done to the region, and records it into a new track for you. So if I hit OK, it bounces it into a new track, which I can then now manipulate anew. It's a new region, new file in my file browser. Notice it's got BIP for bounce in place. I could rename that if I wanted to, I think. Now I can further adjust parameters of this file in a new track. So when we're working with audio in these ways, reversing, doing time stretching, and applying effects, it's important to know where your files are and what's happening to them. So once I do that, let me go over here to my Logic session. And I think Sound Exploration 2 is has my audio files in here, and notice that it has all of these listed, and that's going to be associated with these here. If you wanted to combine multiple tracks, you would solo and then bounce. And if you wanted to be even more specific, you would then select a region, go over here to bounce. Bounce is typically a multi-track process, and so you can say bounce regions in place or just project or section. What regions in place will do, again, ask you to put it into a new track. If you bounce it alone, it is the whole project or section, and you're basically exporting it out of the project, in which you would have to bring it back in. So that summarizes some of the functions and file management of a Logic session.